put a CEO in a couple of years ago, and that went okay for a little while, but then I realized I wasn't done with the work. So there ended up being two CEOs, which was hard for the team. And then at the start late last year, I let her go. And then it's funny, I started looking under the covers and I was just like, okay, there's a bit of work that needs to be done here and cleaned up. So we kind of over the past year, it really just feels like doing a lot of cleanup, to be honest. But
Like,
yeah, just getting tighter and more efficient, lowering costs and trying to market a little bit better.
I'd like to start the show right there. What are some things that you've been doing to cut those costs? And again, put your company size for transparency so they can line up
Yeah.
these thoughts. What are some things you've been doing to lower these costs?
Start talking, jump straight in. Yeah,
Might
why
as
not?
well, everyone. This is
Yeah.
it. That entrepreneur
Yeah,
show.
let's do it.
Well,
One of the biggest things was so we got up to about 31 staff late last year. And then I stepped back into the role and then started to kind of go, what is it that everybody's doing? Like I multiplied out the hours and said, well, if everybody's working 40 hours per week, we must be having a tremendous amount of output. And we're quite a systems and process driven organization, obviously. So it's easy to kind of go, okay, well, what is the output that you're getting? So it was very clear that some people were just taking advantage of the situation that we work virtually, and some had double jobs. And so we started there just going, what is everybody doing? And it was a bit of a watch and let everybody know if you don't have enough work, stick your hands up and let us know, and we can reallocate and find you things. Some people did, some people didn't. Then some people started to feel the pressure of the spotlight being on them. So a couple of them opted out on their own. And then a couple of others, we then started a bit of a reorg thinking in terms of what are the different roles and positions and getting very clear on responsibilities and moving a bit more away from being so task driven to more role driven and thinking, okay, well, certain team members are responsible for certain outcomes. And as we kind of went through this process, some people really lent into it, some people lent out of it. And we've gone now, we're down to probably about halved the team numbers, and we're getting just as much, if not more, output than what we were doing before. A lot less headaches, a lot more streamlined. I know there's probably some combination there also of introducing AI and looking for where AI can help out with certain tasks to mean that team members they can get more output from the same team members. That was probably one of the biggest costs was the wages. The other big one we've revisited was our SaaS subscriptions, which had just blown out. We had so many different SaaS subscriptions. I know a lot of business owners do, and just going through the culling and the merging and oh yes, this tool kind of does a bit of that. Well, can we join that together? And okay, if we sign up to this one, we can actually kill four subscriptions. And before we know it, we probably chopped about a third off our SaaS subscriptions.
I love that right now, even for me. I did a shift over to Kajabi because I'm building out some courses. We're building out the podcast university. But yes, that's $199 a month, but it took away the MailChimp for newsletters. It took away the other CRM. So it's merging these bills together. Like where your head's
Yeah.
at. What AI tool have you been relying on the most in your business? Which one has been of aid?
Yeah, definitely the one that we use the most is ChatGPT. Mainly just doesn't really require any training for the team. They just get it. We kind of started using some custom GPTs. So
Okay.
we've set up a couple of bots and trained it on our own material. And then also I've been looking at some other tools that help you build AI agents. So there's one called Cassidy, and there's a whole bunch of them popping up, but basically it allows you to create workflows where you can ask the LLM, and you can select ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and it'll ask something, get the result, and then it can feed that result into the next step. So it's almost like creating these workflows. And because we're quite process driven and we know we've got some key processes that go on in the organization and we've already got them documented, we know what it is and what the workflow needs to be, and then it's just a matter of translating that into the AI agent. And yeah, quite a lot of those tasks, particularly around content creation, that was a big one for us. We've probably saved just on that, a task that probably took 10 hours is now taking 1 hour. So, and there's a range of those types of tasks that we can leverage AI to get that outcome.
I love how this show has started out. We've learned the latest, but let me first welcome everyone back to That Entrepreneur Show. We are just minutes away from learning more about his business. If you missed his first show, go in the episode description. He may have been on twice. We've been talking about this behind the scenes. I'll have the links there in the show. But this is the podcast that helps small business owners and entrepreneurs thrive through the stories of successful business owners. David is the man behind Systems. When we originally came on the show, we did a book swap. He's out in Australia. I read his book. I'm at a much smaller scale, but it gave me those brainstorming ideas as now I am growing, implementing systems for everything I do. Stick around for all things system. And this show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production. Head to the link in bio to get your podcast journey started today. Dave, let's talk more about your amazing business. Obviously, it's still going since we last spoke. So, congratulations on sustaining, growing, hitting that 30 employee milestone. Let's dive into what you do.
Yeah. So we help business owners get out of the day-to-day operations. So it's once the business owner has a small team around them, usually between 5 to 30 staff, and they're still heavily involved in the operations. They wear all the hats. They help out with sales, marketing, operations, everything. We try and help them step out of the business so they can do basically what Michael Gerber talked about, work on it rather than in it.
I think that's so important. And I'm just, again, over the last 18 months, getting onto that side of things. Letting go is the hardest part. Brought on an assistant a little over a year and a half now, and it was the best decision ever because all of the things I was doing in the business day to day, I'm no longer touching. Other people on my team are taking care of it to work on growing, finally getting to this point. What about the book side of things? Do we have a latest
Yeah.
book?
Yeah, so not launched, but definitely in production. So I'm writing a book called Systems Champion. So the first book, Systemology, was very much for the business owner. The second book, Systems Champion, is all for the person who supports the business owner to do this. So we talk about identifying your systems champion and powering them up and giving them a clear roadmap of what you want to do, and then getting them to help drive it forward. Because business owners, they get busy. Systems and processes, they're important, but they're not urgent. So oftentimes business owners don't find the time, and you
Right.
really need someone who can keep driving it forward. And business owners typically don't know how to direct that person. So I want to use the Systems Champion book as a way to be the manual that the business owner can give to a systems champion and say, here, I want to do this.
I'm glad you gave the context because everyone, he's got a couple awesome books and they're really filled with value, especially if your organization is growing and in these phases. What else could I possibly think is coming out of your end? I mean, you're so ambitious. So is there anything besides the books?
Yeah, look,
What's the latest?
I've got two other pieces I'm working on. One is the academy for the systems champions. So once they
Wow.
read the book, then an online community to support them, because systems champions sometimes don't get the support and the direction they need in the organization. And if they can connect with other like-minded systems champions that can, help each other out, that's another area that we're working on. We've kind of put a couple of beta groups through, and as part of that, I've also got a piece of software that houses the systems and the processes. That one, just been reimagining it with everything that's going on with AI, and I feel like process really is the programming for the machines. So I'm just starting to integrate, well, how does AI fit into this? And where does this go in the future? Like I feel like AI agents will in time be able to execute a lot of administrative tasks that go on in small businesses. So it's trying to see that future and make sure that I can help support the business owners through that.
And that's incredible. And AI is just evolving faster than I can keep up with it, to be honest. So it's always great to have conversations where these tools are brought up. At this point in your business, are you back in the office full time since you mentioned you found that discrepancy of
Yeah.
output?
I'm very much working on it rather than in it. There's a couple of things where I still am involved in delivery, but I've still got a good team. And with the software, um, that's one of the great things about SaaS, is, some customer service teams, some developers, and they're really running that side of the business and helping to support those clients. So I've kind of put myself in a position where I can work a lot more on it. So I still like work to move the business forward, but it's not about the delivery of product or service. It's about how do we grow and expand, or which parts of the business need re-engineering to kind of take us to that next level.
I love that stepping outside and helping build. Who would your ideal customer be right now, David, as your business has grown? I'm not sure if it's changed since when we last spoke.
Trapped in those day to day, they've got some frustrations. Generally, they've been in business for more than a few years. I think the longer you've been in business, the more you start to appreciate systems and processes. So I think more mature business owners that have maybe even tried to systemize in the past, and for whatever reason it didn't work, or they couldn't get their team on board. And oftentimes it's just got a lot to do with the approach and how they actually did it, and how do you get your team on board. So it's those that have started to got a level of frustration, who feel a little bit like they're on a hamster wheel, and they've been doing it for a good number of years, but still can't seem to break out of the operations. I think those people are most primed for the work that I do.
Well, I look forward to hearing how the community and the academy continues to get rolled out. You'll have to let me know. We'll bring you back on here to do it. If you could give a tip to someone out here listening on, one of these listeners who does not have any systems in place, they're an entrepreneur, they don't know where to start, they're overwhelmed. Where is a good place for them to start getting things organized?
The first thing to do is to think about, I've got a little exercise I call the critical client flow, and it helps to uncover the first 10 to 15 systems you should work on. So think in terms of who is your ideal client, like who is the person that you would like 100 more of. They're a pleasure to deal with. They pay your advertised prices. They refer friends and family, and you just like more of them. So think of who that person is. Then think, what is the primary product or service that you sell to that person? And just think one, you might have a few different products that you service, but just think of what's the first thing that you would sell to this person if they came into your world, and then map the linear journey. You just do this on one page. It's a very simple exercise. And you write down, how do you grab their attention? Do they inquire with you? How do you handle that inquiry and qualify them and sell them and send out an invoice? How do you onboard them? How do you deliver the core product or service? And how do you get them to come back? And just write only one or two words to describe each one of those steps. Do it all on an A4 page. Only capture what you're currently doing, not what you would like to be doing. And just start there. That exercise alone will, one, give you some ideas on where you might have gaps. Two, where the pain is. Like if you do that and you intuitively know, oh, onboarding clients or delivering clients might cause pain for you because you haven't quite got things dialed in, that's an area of the business that you'll need to really lean into and get some process documented. I think that's really the first step. And even just getting very comfortable recording yourself doing different tasks. I know you mentioned having the VA now, getting very comfortable communicating instructions through video and making clear videos of, hey, here's how I'm doing this thing, is a great first step to getting clear process.
I love that. I have the onboarding videos for my team and a YouTube like private channel, I guess it is. So that way when someone needs to go on there, they're able to see exactly what we're talking about. Great advice all the way throughout. I want to, before we get the contact info, before we let him go, you mentioned the struggles you had with that initial hire where you stepped out of the business, you had to get back in. What lessons learned do you have from interviewing people for these high level roles that you can maybe pass on to our audience here?
Yeah, I've different businesses I've found because I've did it originally in my Melbourne SEO services business, and that worked really, really well. So the first thing is even before the interview is to make sure that you're ready. Like once you put someone in as a CEO, like just be clear on who it is that you're hiring. Like, do you want to oftentimes it's actually a COO who is actually what you want, not necessarily a CEO. Like a COO is the chief operating officer, and you make it very clear that this person is to help handle the operations while you still handle the vision and the leadership for the company. Whereas the CEO is generally the person providing some of that vision and can even have a little bit of both roles. So that was probably the first business I was ready to step out. So you have to be ready to step out and hand over the reins and make sure that you're getting the right person into the right seat. So once you clear on the role you want, then it's a matter of where are they? I think oftentimes looking within, depending on the size of the team, is great because they know a lot about the business and they can be groomed into it. If you're going to go external, probably the best bit of advice I'd give, uh, I love finding ex business owners who have run a business of their own in the past, who maybe for whatever reason circumstances have changed and now they want a little bit of extra security and people's life change. And there's a lot of risk and extra work that gets put on the shoulders of the business owners. Like business owners work hard, and there's no two ways about it. And some people look for a change of pace. But if you find a person who has business owner experience, they appreciate that. They know what it takes. They understand what it takes to monitor the numbers and those sorts of things. So I feel like trying to uncover that is probably the best piece of advice I could give there.
That's amazing advice, David. Thank you so much for sharing that. If you could give love, show some shout out love to one person on your team who's been crushing it before we sign off and get the contact info, who has been on fire on your team?
I reckon we have to shout out for Jerica. Jerica's been connecting and organizing with you, and she takes care of my inbox, and I don't have to think about looking after that. And I remember the inbox hell. Like I used
That's
to
what I'm
spend so much
saying with
time
the
on
VA. It's
email.
beautiful not having it and then go back and forth scheduling times and everything. That's really cool. Big shout out to Jerica. She did a great job. She over communicated, which is great. You don't see that a lot with podcast guests where you don't, I still don't understand it almost 5 years later where people come on the show and they don't take much interest in preparing themselves for the show and even the date and the time and all of these things. But David's a model guest, model entrepreneur. I'm really glad we had to make some time for him to come back on the show. Dave, where can we find you online? Everything.
Yeah, best to just head to Amazon and search Systemology. My book's still the best place to get started, or head to systemology.com and there's the links to different YouTube channels and extra resources to help you on the journey.
Thank you for sharing that. Everyone, go check out those free resources to get started. Again, I've got his book, great books here. He will be back. Don't you worry. The show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all podcast platforms and social media platforms. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us 5 stars and leave a great review for our guest of honor. I am at Vincent A. Lancey, vincentalancy.com, and this show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production, comingalivepodcastproduction.com for all your podcasting needs. And with that, we're signing off today, Australia, all the way over to Florida. David, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.